There's a huge challenge facing us. By 2050, we're going to need to produce way more food to feed everyone on the planet. But here's the good news. Scientists are coming up with some really amazing ways to do it. Today, we're going to dive into this world of smart farming, and we'll look at how we're boosting two super important food sources, poultry and fish.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with why protein is such a big deal in the first place. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of both poultry and fisheries. We'll even check out a really clever way to farm fish. And we'll wrap it all up with the big picture idea, how we can farm smarter, not just harder.
All right, first things first, let's set the stage and really understand the problem we're trying to solve here. Because as the world's population grows, so does our need for good, nutritious food.
So why all the focus on eggs and fish? Why are these so critical? To get it, we really need to look at the numbers. Let's see what the data tells us about their role in our diet.
Just look at this. We're talking about a huge concentration of protein. Meat is packing over 21%, and fish is right behind it at 19%. This is exactly why there's such an efficient way for us to get the fuel we need to grow and, just live.
Okay, so if these foods are so packed with protein, how do we make sure we have enough of them? Let's jump into our first case study and break down the science behind poultry farming.
At its core, poultry farming is all about raising birds for two things, eggs and meat. But here's where it gets really interesting. Farmers have basically developed two completely different kinds of chickens, where each one is an absolute specialist at its job.
So, you've got two main players in the poultry world. On one side, you have layers. Think of them as the egg-laying machines. Their whole purpose is to produce lots of high-quality eggs. And on the other side, you have broilers. They're bred for one thing and one thing only, to grow big and grow fast so they can be sent to market for meat.
But what if you could take the best traits from different chickens and combine them into one single superbird? Well, that's exactly where the science of crossbreeding comes into play.
The strategy here is actually really clever. Farmers will take an indigenous breed, like the Asil chicken, which is super tough and resistant to disease, and cross it with an exotic breed like the Leghorn, which is famous for laying a ton of eggs. What you get is a new variety that has the toughness of one parent and the high productivity of the other. Best of both worlds. But look, having great genetics is only half the battle. To really get the most out of these super breeds, you need scientific management. That means everything from clean, temperature-controlled housing to the right kind of food, and of course, a strict health plan to keep diseases from spreading.
All right, let's switch gears. We're going to see how these same ideas of scientific management work in a totally different environment, the world of fisheries. The challenges are different, for sure, but the goal is exactly the same: produce more food more sustainably.
So there are two main ways we get fish. First, there's capture fishing, which is exactly what it sounds like, just catching fish out in the wild. The second is culture fishery, which you probably know as aquaculture. And as our wild fish stocks get pushed to their limits, aquaculture isn't just an option anymore, it's becoming a necessity.
And these methods happen in two different ecosystems. You've got your marine fisheries, which is everything happening in the sea, from the coast all the way out to the deep ocean. Then you have inland fisheries, which deal with freshwater, like rivers and ponds. And there's even a special term, mariculture, for when you farm marine fish in seawater.
Okay, get ready for this, because it's one of the most ingenious ideas in all of aquaculture. It's a system that basically turns a regular old pond into a high-tech food factory.
It's called composite fish culture, and it's a brilliant example of what you might call ecological engineering. The whole idea is to raise several different kinds of fish all together in the very same pond.
Now, the real magic of this system is that each fish has its own job. The catla hangs out near the surface skimming for food. The rohu patrols the middle of the pond. And then down at the bottom, you have the mringle and common carp acting as the cleanup crew. The result is this perfectly balanced ecosystem where no one's competing for food.
So this very careful selection of fish has a huge effect on how productive the pond is. It seems simple, right? But it leads to a massive increase in the amount of fish you can actually harvest. So what's the secret? How does it work?
This is the genius of composite culture. First, and most importantly, there's no fighting over food. Second, because of that, every last bit of available food in the pond actually gets eaten. And the result? A huge increase in yield. You can harvest so much more fish from a single pond, sometimes up to 6 times more than you could with just one species.
So let's step back for a second and connect the dots here. What's the one thing that ties together breeding better chickens and designing a super efficient fish pond?
Well, whether we're talking about poultry or fish, the key to boosting production all comes down to one thing: science.
At the end of the day, it's the application of science that's going to help us feed the world. Things like crossbreeding, better nutrition, and clever ecosystem design, these are the tools that let us produce more food with less impact on the planet.
And that leaves us with one final thought. We've just seen how science has totally transformed these practices. It really makes you wonder, as our technology gets even better and our challenges get bigger, what's going to be the next great revolution in how we produce our food?